Let's see what I got. Yeah, Mike Vrabel. I put on when I sent it to you. I put right next to it. It's a pipe dream. He's been my number one as he is with a lot of people. But I think we're pretty secure in the idea that he's not happening. The Patriots it just seems perfect. Brian Flores, I think, comes in here, brings exactly what we were hoping that when we got rid of Salah and bumped up Ulbrich, that accountability thing that we were hoping would happen. I think Flores brings that with him on day one. Let's not forget, he didn't really have what you could call a Super Bowl team down there in Miami. He had a losing season, then he got them to 9-7, then he was 10-6, or maybe was it 10-7 yet? I forget if it was
no,
17
I don't think
games or not.
I think he was done before they moved to the 17-game schedule.
And he got fired for not being okay with the way the Miami Dolphins were running their operation. As we know, they tried to get him to get paid to tank. Which, look, I'm all about tanking, but you got to do it right. You don't include the players, and you just pass down a directive and say, look, I want to see the younger guys. Like where it's a losing season or whatever. I want you to I want to start evaluating however you do it, but you don't offer to fucking pay the guy. And then look, that was the whole thing when Tom Brady, they lost a draft pick for all that stuff. So it wasn't just him. He wasn't making stuff up. So he didn't get fired because he was doing a poor job. He was actually a very surprising fire by most people in the NFL. I couldn't believe. I was delighted when they fired him. So the whole Tua thing, this is why I like experienced head coaches. Brian Flores is the perfect example for it. You want them to make those types of mistakes with another organization. You want them to learn from it. Now, you don't want them to go from those mistakes, get fired, and come right into leading your team like we did with Adam Gase. But you want them to go back. He spent time with the Steelers under Tomlin. He's now running one of the better defenses in the NFL for the Vikings. He's kind of come back up through the ranks. He's on record as saying he learned a lot from the handling of the Tua situation. He would probably do it differently. That's humility. So he comes in with that badass approach, accountability, and already made a bunch of mistakes for the Dolphins that I think we don't have to endure him learning while we're rooting for wins. So he's my fave. Aaron Glenn, again, I really don't want another rookie defensive guy, but if it's going to be, I think Aaron Glenn's about as good as you could hope for. He's a former Jet. I remember where I was when we drafted him. I was sitting on my buddy's bed in Dartmouth Village in Lake Hiawatha, New Jersey, and I was rooting for Aaron Glenn to be the draft pick, and I remember it. I loved his career with us. He was a scout for us. Don't forget that. He started kind of his personnel career with the Jets. So seeing a homecoming for him, again, not my top choice merely because he's a rookie head coach and he's a defensive mind. But boy, oh boy, if you're going to do that, Aaron Glenn's the guy to do it with. And then Matt Nagy, I just think he's not my favorite. He doesn't necessarily excite me, but he's a former head coach. He's got a winning record in his 4 years as a head coach. 2 out of the 4 years he went to the playoffs with Mitch Trubisky as his quarterback. And don't forget, guys, one of the reason he lost in the wild card the 1 year is because of the double doink. You know what I mean? Like the kick heard around the world. And then since then, he's been hanging out with Andy Reid. Not a terrible, like I said, there's a lot of boxes checked with him. Not my favorite, doesn't excite me, but we could do a lot worse than a guy coming in with his resume. So I put him on my list as well.
Jet Engine comes in asking, my issue with Flores is who is the OC? Josh McCown, buddy.
Fuck yeah, baby.
Uncle Josh, bring him back. Bring him back. All right. My list is going to look pretty similar as well. Mike Vrabel at the top of this list. I know, we're all assuming he's going to go to the Patriots. I think the Patriots reaching out to Ben Johnson for an interview is interesting. It's interesting enough to me that maybe Ben Johnson does take that job in New England, and maybe Mike Vrabel is potentially back on the table for the New York Jets. I thought the masterclass that he did in the playoffs against Bill Belichick when he had he had to run time off, and he's like, "Oh, I'm going to get a false start, but it's another penalty if I get another it's another penalty if I get another delay game." So then he does a false start, then it's a delay game again, and he ate like 2 minutes off the clock. It was just, you saw Belichick throwing his hands up in the air, like super burnt out. That was the moment I thought, man, Mike Vrabel just has it. He just beat the guy that normally beats all of us. They changed the rules the following year because of that particular set of events.
Out-coached him, which we never see, right, Ryan?
Never see it. Like the only time we ever saw it was it Rex that had, they told the refs, like the leading up to the game, that the Patriots kind of go over the center of the field goal, and we got a flag that gave us an extra shot at a field goal. We wound up beating the Patriots at one point. Like, we never see the Jets, outsmart Belichick, and Vrabel was able to do that in the most chef's kiss type of moment. I love that he hires offensive coordinators that get chosen for head coaching positions. I think that is a plus. Brian Flores, very high on my list. If we're not going to get Mike Vrabel, Brian Flores is the next guy on my list here. I think, like Bean said, surprising when he was fired from Miami. I think that bodes well. I think there's going to be an angst, he's going to take issue with the Dolphins. He'll have a little bit more vitriol. Like, I hate the Dolphins, but I think Brian Flores hates the Dolphins more, which makes me happy. That's what I want to see in my players. That's what I want to see in my coaches and whatnot. Bring a little passion to the table here. I love that his teams were incredibly disciplined. One of the least penalized teams in the league. When you look at how a game is won, there is offensive, there is defensive, there is special teams. That fourth aspect is penalties. You can have almost an entire offense, defense worth of yardage accumulated and first downs gained or lost because of penalties. Jets were the most penalized team in the league this year, and it wasn't even close. I very much like the discipline that Brian Flores could bring to the table. I like Aaron Glenn, obviously his time with the Jets, but also just a very passionate leader of men. I don't, like being said, I don't particularly want another first-time defensive-minded head coach. I feel like that's sort of regressive, but Aaron Glenn does break that kind of mold for me. And him coming from the Lions means he could bring someone with an electric offense, I think, with an electric offense over as his offensive coordinator, and that alleviates some of that. There's a passion because he played here. We drafted him. There's a belief in him. And I feel like I want our team to want to be here. And I feel like Flores coming from Brooklyn and Glenn, obviously being here in the past, are two guys that could very much fill that role. Joe Brady, Bills offensive coordinator. I really liked him back when he was he the Saints wide receivers coach, and then he went to LSU as I don't know if it was wide receivers coach or passing game coordinator with Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson down there. Obviously didn't have a great stint with the Carolina Panthers, but then comes into Buffalo in a season that they're supposed to regress. This is the year that they don't have Stefon Diggs. They don't have, they got a massive cap hit with Josh Allen. They're not sure how they're going to rebound. It's supposed to be the Jets' year to take over the division. And not just that Josh Allen's playing at an MVP caliber level, because I think that would have been the case regardless of who their offensive coordinator was. I think the benefit is seeing how that running game took off and watching Cook have a zillion touchdowns this year. The Jets struggled with the offensive run game side of the ball, and Brees and Allen and Isaiah Davis, I think, would benefit greatly from Joe Brady and how he schemes guys open. He's getting more out of the talent than I think people thought was on that Bills team with Josh Allen. So that's sort of how I round out my top 4 head coaches. Matt, let's hear you.
Me and Ryan have the same list, and there's a lot of rollover here, but I'm going to give my reasoning to why these are my top guys. I'm going to hold out hope until it's officially over for Mike Vrabel. And I hate what the Patriots do. Did you see what they did today with their BS Rooney Rule interviews? Byron Leftwich and Pep Hamilton? Come on. What is
Pep always gets interviewed.
Yeah, he's like the poster child, unfortunately, for that. Like that, it's not fair to those guys. They're not being seriously considered. It's not fair to other quality, minority coaches that are realistic candidates. It's ridiculous. It's really stupid. But for Vrabel, for all the reasons that you guys hit, disciplinarian, has won. He's 9 games over 500 as a coach. has won multiple playoff games. I think he got a really shitty deal at the end of his tenure in Tennessee. They traded away A.J. Brown. He was beefing with the general manager. And I just think he's a really smart head football coach. And a lot of that, not a lot, but I feel like the chat split on Brian Flores. And I don't understand the, another failed Dolphins coach. I think he overachieved each of the 3 years that he was there. If you remember his first year, that was the tank for Tua year. Everyone said that season leading up to it was they're going to go 0-16. It's a disgrace what they're doing. They're tearing down this roster, and they won 5 games. And I know 5-11 is nothing to, write home about, but that team was supposed to be garbage #1 overall pick, and they weren't that. And then they won 9 and 10 games. And I thought he got a really raw deal. And yeah, maybe he would do things differently this go around with Tua, but this is another no nonsense guy who I think you could pair a good offensive coordinator with, someone that, is with the Vikings right now. And Josh McCown feels like the perfect guy to pair with him. He has the experience as the head coach. So that's why I like him, is because of the experience and the a little bit more recent success than some of these other guys who are getting interviewed. For me, Glenn, he's a lot of people's #1. He's not my #1, but he still makes my list because I think there's a path to that working. You got to like what the Detroit Lions are doing overall. And I feel like his coaching style personifies their bully attitude. They play fast on defense. They're exciting. They're aggressive. They go for it on 4th down. They punch you in the mouth with the 2 running backs when Montgomery's healthy. And I think Glenn can take his experience that he had here with the New York Jets and being here and seeing how Bill Parcells ran things, I think is
good point.
An important piece to the puzzle. Was also with the Saints with Dan Campbell too. So,
and Sean Payton.
And Sean Payton too. Great point. So he has his due. And I think I'm a little bit nervous about going first time defensive coordinator as a head coach again. I get that. That's another reason why it's not my #1, but there's things to like about him. I don't think it's a complete carbon copy of Robert Saleh. He has a little bit more edge to him than Robert Saleh did, I would say. And Brady's a guy that I've liked for a while. A slight concern with the staff that he could build, and slight concern if he's ready to be a full leader. But I have no doubt that he has the offensive prowess figured out. And it's not just because what he's doing up in Buffalo with Josh McCown. With Josh Allen. Josh Allen's obviously a supremely talented quarterback. But look at the light switch that changed in the middle of last year when they made the switch to him as the offensive coordinator. The offense took off. They go on a run. They end up making the playoffs. This year, Josh Allen is, he's going to finish top 2 in MVP voting, probably. Either he wins it or Lamar, I think. But going back to what he did at LSU with Joe Burrow was really impressive. I even liked what he was doing early on in Carolina. I know it didn't end well, but I thought it was an interesting hire when Matt Rule made it. And I think if you're going to go the offensive route, to me, he's the best candidate on the offensive side of the ball. So had to toss someone on the offense in there too.
What's up, guys? Matt O'Leary from Talkin' Jets. If you liked that video, please make sure to subscribe and follow for more New York Jets content.